Three, two, one. What's going on, everyone? You're watching Ash on Comics. My name is Ash, and I wanted to make a special video today, just to get some things kind of off my head or off my chest, or however you phrase that. I've been lost in the Twitterverse, which is like a big black hole of evil. I like Twitter. I really like what it's capable of doing. I like the outreach. I like the sharing of ideas. I think it really does the best. It's the best at what it does. We don't have a better alternative, but it also can be a madhouse and a place of idiocy. And I'm no different. I've made my fair share of comments on there that I kind of like, probably wasn't a good thing to do. But as always, I'm joined by Stan, the man. I keep a little statuette pop here of Stan. I know a lot of you guys aren't necessarily pop fans, and I can understand, but I think this one, when I saw Stan, was just classic. I think even if you're not a pop fan, you can appreciate this. I like the the fake copper, like it, you know what I'm saying? It looks like a little copper statue. I keep this here because I like to remember what Stan stood for at all times. It's kind of my guiding light when it comes to comics. And when I start thinking negative, when I start hearing other idiots online espousing shit and everything else, it can be very easy to lose the message. It can be very easy to get lost in all this. It can be very easy to have your anger take hold, someone to say something to you, piss you off, set your mind down this track if you're like, F you and all this stuff. And I see it affecting people that I like and admire, and, I can just see their anger take over. Once they get offended, once they become insulted or whatever, it swells. And Twitter's not a good place to communicate, so you can't easily resolve these differences. If you get in a fight with someone on Twitter, you're going to become blood enemies very often, because you can't sit down like men and just hash things out and shake hands and whatever. The message, already when you're relying on written word, the message is easily lost because the person reading your word can choose the tone that they want to hear your word in. They can choose to hear inflection. They can choose to alter the connotation. There's multiple ways. Unless you're just even the most brilliant writers will have this problem. But if you're not a brilliant writer, you're just an average Joe writing a tweet on your phone, it's very easy to be misunderstood, especially when the receiving party is assuming the worst. They already have a prejudice against you. They already don't like you, so they're going to read the tweet in the worst possible context. And it just fuels that fire. Then they respond, you read their tweet in the worst possible context. So anyways, I've been kind of involved in a little bit of drama regarding what I call Neocomicsgate. And I coined this term a couple weeks ago, not because I'm some great person, I'm trying to, rise off of some term, but I felt like for the past year, we needed a term for this alternative version of Comicsgate that's out there. A lot of people in the alternative version, what I will henceforth call Neocomicsgate going forward, have referred to themselves as Phase 2. If you're involved in Comicsgate at all, you know all about it. These group of creators have come on board and they're selling their comic books, and it's moved on. This idea of we're moving on from the original thing of Comicsgate, which started as a consumer movement, and now pros are getting involved, and now it's about making a new industry out of the ashes of the old, and all this stuff. And I don't begrudge anyone for wanting to do that. I am in no place to tell someone they can or can't do that. My contention comes from the use of the word Comicsgate. And that's not what Comicsgate is, right? Now, I don't own Comicsgate. I can't tell people how to use it. But I can stand up for the definition. I can say, no, historically, That's not what Comicsgate means. And someone can come to me, well, that's what it means now, and okay, we're just going to argue at each other, right? No one owns it. No one can prove each other wrong. Really, dog? I'm trying to have a conversation here. So, it's put me sort of in the middle of things because I do respect a lot of these creators that are in Neocomicsgate. Ethan Van Sciver, who I'm pointing at his channel right now, is probably the biggest of the bunch. I got into Comicsgate because of our boy Zach. I got into comics because of our boy Zach. I respect people on the other side over there, like John Malin. I was a big fan of Donald DeLay, a big supporter of his in the beginning. The more he's been embroiled in the Neocomicsgate stuff, the more I've lost touch with him. Because one of the things with Neocomicsgate is it's very insular. These people don't really associate outside of this circle. It's a very groupthink sort of echo chamber, which is a problem of its own. Now, why am I making this video? I don't know. I'm kind of rambling on. This is all off the cuff. I didn't script it. But I don't like making enemies. It's not my goal here to make an enemy about everyone. But I want to speak for myself. And I want to put it on the record because, there's all sorts of drama. And the group of Neocomicsgate, War Campaign being one of these little subgroups, like to antagonize. They like to start fights. They like to throw people under the bus. And they like to kick people out of Comicsgate. Which you can't do because Comicsgate's an idea. You can kick them out of Neocomicsgate because that's their group that they've formed. And for the record, I just want to state what Comicsgate is. Comicsgate is simply an idea that formed from the dissatisfaction that fans had towards the comic industry, in where the industry started using the beloved characters, these well-established characters, for their own ideological purposes. They were using characters as tools for propaganda, to proselytize to the fan base, to the reader, not to tell good stories. Fans were buying these comics because they wanted to be entertained by a Captain America story about him and his adventures and fighting bad guys and standing up for truth and justice. They didn't want to buy into this idea that Captain was really a Nazi all along, and then the white privilege and all this bullshit. Right? Now, they could have told a good story where Captain America, secretly not. They could have imagined. I'm not saying you can't tell a story like that, but that's not what that story was. That was purely a propaganda piece. So, and there's more that we've covered. Female Thor, female everybody. Just gender swapping, race swapping, this and that, turning half the females into homosexuals, all to push this idea of politics. That's what Comicsgate started as. Now, they weren't Comicsgate back then. They were just disgruntled fans. And then the industry fought back against those fans because it was infested with SJWs who didn't actually care about the industry. They didn't actually care about doing good business. They cared about their ideology, which was under attack. And when you're a progressive, you can't stand when people fight your ideology. You can't stand to have your ideas put out there in the open and judged on their own merit. So you must destroy anything that assaults your idea. You're not intellectually honest ever. And so when fans did that, they were assaulting the ideology, and the pros, instead of responding like any other business, like McDonald's. Oh, hey, McDonald's, I ordered a double cheeseburger and you gave me a chicken sandwich. Oh, we're sorry about that. Please, let me have that back. I will fix you a chicken sandwich right away. That's bare minimum what you'd expect, right? And that's McDonald's. Okay. Then some companies you've seen, you've heard classic stories of customer service, like the old lady that brings in the tire to Nordstrom's. She's like, I want to return this tire, blah, blah, blah. And Nordstrom's is like, we don't sell tires. She's like, I bought my tire here. And they gave her money back. Like, that's these old classic legendary stories of customers. I don't expect that. But I do expect a modicum of professionalism. These guys not only didn't do that, but they started attacking the fan base. They started calling the fan base bigots and racist. They're calling fans Nazis, threatening violence to certain fans, harassing fans, doxing fans, looking up. I even saw threats against prominent figures in Comicsgate towards their children, sending pictures of their anus, telling people to die of cancer. Can you imagine going to McDonald's and it's like, hey, you gave me a cheeseburger, or you gave me a chicken sandwich instead of a double cheeseburger, and someone's just like, what the fuck? Take your white privilege elsewhere. Why don't you go die of cancer? How dare you bring back? We don't, you would just be appalled. You would never go to McDonald's again, right? Like, you just wouldn't stand for it because that's just intolerable. You are the paying customer. In comics, you pay an overly ridiculous price for a comic book. A base comic book, 20-page comic book, printed on shitty-ass paper with runny ink that probably won't last for 20 years. You're thinking, oh, it's going to be collectible. You're paying $4. That's just for the basic shitty ones. Some of them are $5, $6, up to $10. So you have every right. Now, I believe that the people defending this industry are the people that really don't buy comics. They pirate them online or whatever, or they just don't even care. They love the idea of comics. They like the characters. Maybe they grew up with them as a kid, watched cartoons. Oh, yeah, I watched these X-Men cartoons as a kid. I have fond memories of liking them. I identify myself with them. I don't buy the comics. I'm not, into that. I'll buy like pop figures and go see the movies and stuff and maybe cosplay. And if they are into the comics, maybe they pirate them. Pirating is a huge problem with comic books. So they don't get upset when things, because they're not paying customers. It doesn't bother them the same way. Plus, it's preaching their ideology anyway. But people like me, and I'm thinking you, if you're listening to this video, pay all this money, you expect to be at least treated as a basic customer. So where am I going with this? I've got Ethan up here the whole time. So I have been engaging, and it's kind of been sickening me what I've been seeing some of these Neocomicsgate clowns. I'm going to call them clowns because they are, some of them. Literally one of them, Cecil, is a clown. He's, his identity is this clowny figure. Now, I've never had a problem with Cecil in the past. I used to think Cecil was funny, and he can be funny. He's got a certain amount of wit and everything, but he's let ideology take over. He's become a cult figure. If you ever watched Game of Thrones, you remember the famous stuff from, I think it was either season 6 or 7 with the Red Sparrows, this cultish group and their whole shame, they're complete ideologues. And that's what Neocomicsgate seems to have been, with Mike Miller just recently making a rather stupid tweet about pride and gay pride and everything like that. Mike's a Christian. He believes gay, pride is a sin, which it is. And then the gay pride, he doesn't, like Mike, obviously as a Christian, doesn't agree with homosexuality and whatever. And so his tweet was very much a troll towards that crowd. And as a professional, it's not really a good look. But, whatever. Whatever. Say your piece, if you don't like it, if you're, Mike, that was a stupid tweet. All right, that was, but it just turned into this mountain of fucking shit. Now, about a month prior to this, Doug TenNapel, responsible for Earthworm Jim, just did the Bigfoot Bill, is also a big prominent person in this Neocomicsgate movement with the IGG crowd, making all these books. He made some comments about, Christianity being persecuted. I don't even actually know the whole details because I don't follow along, but I see the aftermath. And I just watch these Neocomicsgate buffoons going after him and dragging him and dragging him and dragging him. And Cecil just can't stop. Like today, it's just nonstop. He's just making stuff. And I'm just like, dude, stop with this. Stop with this. I'm not making attacks towards Cecil. I'm just saying stop and basically pointing out his hypocrisy. Meanwhile, I don't hear anything from Doug. I follow Doug. I don't see Doug trying to drag Neocomics. He just moved on. He made his peace, said his things. I don't like what these guys are doing. and what have you. And even if he was, who cares? People disagree all the time. One of my online buddies and friends of my channel, Sergeant Bats, he and I disagree on quite a bit. And he is one of the people who's very angry at the Neocomicsgate group. He's also very angry at Ethan Van Sciver. He thinks that Ethan has taken over this movement and become this big, essential, pirate of Comicsgate, which I try to talk to him and say, I disagree. That's not the case. But Bats is his own person. He can think how he wants. It's not up to me to tell him how to think. I can try to persuade and maybe show him things that might change his mind, but ultimately, it's up to him to have his mind. He's his own person. And just as I would not expect Ethan to hold me accountable for everything that Bats says, I don't expect Ethan to be accountable for everything these yahoos online say. And that's where it all comes down to my long-winded video here about Ethan. He is not responsible for Neocomicsgate. Now, when I say that, I mean that he does not have ongoing responsibility. Is he responsible for the past, like his actions helping it get to this? Yes, he has a level of responsibility in that he helped it become what it is. Or he helped, like War Campaign would not exist without Ethan. So, but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about current, ongoing responsibility. He's not accountable for this. I don't expect Ethan to answer for anyone but Ethan, right? So here's where we're on the topic of. Imagine for a second. Let's just think about something for a second. I want everyone who's listening. Imagine for a moment. Forget everything that you're knowing right now. Just think about. Imagine you're a comic creator, right? You grew up as a kid. You're creating comics, your own. You're just a fan. You're drawing. You love comics. And then one day, you break into the business and you create an indie comic. And through that indie comic, you hone your craft and you get some notice and some popularity. Then you break into the big mainstream comics and you get jobs doing that. And then over the years, say, 25 years of doing this, you become one of the top names in the business and you get to work with the top legendary writers doing, legendary books that people still talk about, a decade later. Imagine you're one of these people and you've worked your butt off, you've endured a bunch of bullshit, and this is what you do. You're a professional and you're in an industry that you can't really move out of, right? It's not like you're a computer programmer at Microsoft and you hate fucking Microsoft, so you move over to Google. Google, you fucking hate Google too? Okay, you move over to Oracle. Like, in most industries, if the company you're working with, you have big problems with, you can just move on and go somewhere else. But in comics, you really can't. You got Marvel and DC, and unless you're some huge bigwig that can sell books just on your name alone, like Mark Millar, real name Mark Miller, it's not a good option. So DC was, Ethan was making pretty good page rates at DC and, making a decent living, but he had outspoken views towards his politics. Now, Ethan admittedly, and I guess I was blowing this whole thing. I was trying to put you in the shoes of Ethan without actually talking about Ethan, so you could kind of understand. But imagine you had political views. You're a big Trump supporter. You're like, yeah, I believe in this guy. He's gonna put an end to the fascist leanings that this country is going down for the past 8 years. I'm happy. I'm supporting this guy and I'm excited. Now imagine if your industry started promoting the fan base to harass you and started a whisper network behind your back to try to sabotage your career. What would you do? How would you feel? Right? And how sucky would it be to be going to work working with these people and colleagues and not knowing which ones are whispering behind your back, which ones, you can actually trust. I've heard a lot of the stories, and I know some of the behind the scenes things that happen to Ethan, and I just think it's just atrocious. But imagine you're in that position. Now, then imagine a movement comes along like Comicsgate, and someone like Zach spurs this movement to elevate it to heights where it creates a situation where you can make comics outside of the mainstream industry and make good money. Would you jump on it? I think you would. I would. If I was in Ethan's position, I would do what Ethan did. Now, Ethan's responsibility is to put food on his plate. It's to put food on his children's plate, to provide for his wife. That's what his responsibility is. There's a lot of things that Ethan does that I don't agree with. And over the past, it's almost been like 2 years now, I've off and on communicated with him and told him that I didn't like what he was doing. But I did it behind the scenes. I didn't go out in public on Twitter and blast things and do things like that. I think one of the deals that's at least got me a little bit of a voice to have him listen to me, is to be respectful. Oftentimes, I have to say, Ethan has listened to me. It doesn't mean that he's done what I said per se, but he's heard me. He's taken the time to listen and really considered what I've had to say. Now, he makes his own decisions and lives his own life, and sometimes I agree with what he does, and I'm like, awesome. I'm really happy that this is the road you took. And other times he does it, and I'm like, all right, well, you got to do you. But I'm making this video right now because I'm finding myself on the cusp between loyalties of original Comicsgate and clashing with this Neocomicsgate, to which Ethan is very much tied to. Now, I think Ethan very much still does believe in the original tenets of Comicsgate that I outlined in the beginning. But I also believe that he's very much tied to the Neocomicsgate. Not so much in a malicious... I don't look at Ethan as this mustache twirling villain like, I'm going to destroy Comicsgate. I don't think that at all. I think that everything that's happened has just been very organic, and it's just the way that it's happened. And when I was on his stream so long ago, it's been like a half a year, and he had me on as a guest, and we had like a little interview discussion. I didn't really get my points across that I wanted to. I'm not very eloquent, but he had me on. Here's someone, I'm a nobody. I'm a small fish in a small pond. Like, I'm a nobody. But I've talked to him behind the scenes in the past and had him listen to me, and I've criticized what he's done. He's got no reason to invite me on his show. None. He could just ignore me. But instead, he chose to be like, hey, let me have you on. And before we went live on air, he talked to me about, having a conversation, and just there was no malintent in what he was doing. And there hasn't been since. I'm not the same type of person as Ethan. Ethan is East Coast. I'm West Coast. I don't know what it's like. And I don't really know what it's like to have 100,000 subscribers and hundreds of thousands of comic book fans and this sort of celebrity type status that Ethan has to deal with. We all think like it's all sun and rainbows all the time to be like that. We'd all love to be in Ethan's shoes, but along with that comes a lot of shit. A lot of people your way talking shit about you and telling you suck and this and that. And he does a good job blowing it off. But it'd be very easy for him to blow someone like me off as well and just be like, oh, Ash is just another one of these, these people just looking to use me for attention or whatever. I don't know. He has people that do that, right? But he hasn't. I've found that if you treat him with respect and you're not willing to just fucking, think the worst of him at every opportunity, that you'll be shown that in return. Now, he doesn't owe me anything, but I wanted to get this on the record because I don't want to have this feeling where I'm on Twitter and I'm talking shit about Neocomicsgate and people are interpreting that to be, oh, you're talking shit about Ethan because Ethan's part of Neocomicsgate. No. Ethan is his own person, right? If I'm going to say something about Ethan, if I have a problem, I'm going to say Ethan, okay? Now, some people's like, well, Ethan should call these people out. They're being a bunch of assholes. Well, understand something. These are Ethan's fans, right? Comicsgate started in this whole premise where we didn't want pros telling fans what to think and do. It's not your job, right? Sell the freaking hot dog. Ethan is selling the hot dog. Now, at the same time, these fans are using Ethan and his views to either justify their own views, to blow up and make views of their own. I don't know. Because everyone has their own motives. Everyone has their own agendas. Everyone has their own feelings about the industry. And it's very easy to live vicariously through someone else. If someone stands up and, like Ethan is like, this is what I believe, whatever, and someone's like, yeah, Ethan speaks for me. Okay. I don't think it's Ethan's place now to go police the entire Neocomicsgate community. I think it's Ethan's place to just be Ethan, which is why I tried to warn him 6 months ago, or however long it was, to get away from Comicsgate. Not to get away from the people of Comicsgate, not to get away from the ideas of Comicsgate. Just get away from the branding. Let the consumers embrace it, and as a professional, you can support the consumers embracing it, saying, yes, your guys' Comicsgate movement is something I support, and I will try to live up to what you want to do as a professional. See, Ethan's the next step. Comicsgate is the consumer. Ethan is the professional that delivers. But Ethan shouldn't be part of that, right? Ethan should be a step outside. And you can agree with it. Doesn't mean since I'm not Comicsgate, I don't know. You believe in all the same things, but as a pro, believing that is a different terminology. It's a different thing. It's a different aspect. I don't know how to really put it in words to make it clear, but this is where this causes a problem. Now everyone expects Ethan to be responsible for Comicsgate, and no, he's responsible to sell comics. He's responsible to sell comics and behave like a professional, and for the most part, I think he does. I don't like his views on Star Wars. I don't like him trashing the industry all the time, but who am I to talk about it? He doesn't like Star Wars, but fine. Go at it. It's right. It's me as a consumer now to just watch the video or not watch the video. I'm not going to go on Twitter now and be like, make up a big drama thing about it. He's got legions of fans that love to listen to him speak about these things. So who am I? So that's kind of what the point of this whole video is to just get this out here, talk about my thoughts, give you an opportunity to address me in the comments, also on my Discord channel. Watch Ethan's videos yourself. Don't just listen to what everyone's telling you. That's another thing. I see a lot of rumor and gossip on Twitter, and you'll get into things like this. Here's one of the Neocomicsgate's guys that I've been interacting with on Twitter, Pan Soy Child. He's like, I'm confused. Are we a cult or a mafia? Because I called them a cult, and I called them a mafia. As you can see here, it's they said the problem is Doug used Comicsgate to get our money, caused numerous problems, and left. He now proceeds to use my Christianity and Blame More campaign attempt to destroy the CG movement, which is not true at all. I said it's whole false. Doug is not trying to destroy the CG movement. I said Doug embraced the tenets of actual Comicsgate and offered a stellar book worthy of your money. Meanwhile, War Campaign has been at the forefront of ruining CG's name and running supporters away like the mafia you are. You've twisted it into a cult I call Neocomicsgate. Now, of course, just like arguing with SJWs, they take everything hyper literal and purposely misconstrue. Are they a literal organized crime? No. No. But just like the Portland Comics Mafia, that's what I'm alluding to here. They're like that. They're like they're the Comicsgate Mafia. But as a cult, they operate very much like a cult. And it's just like like cults. If you join Scientology, leave and see what happens to you. Go join any cult and then leave and see what happens. I get there's a term for it. People who are into like cults and things like that know more about it than I do. But I know there's a term, I forget what it's called. But they will always try to blast people who leave. And that's exactly what Neocomicsgate does. Doug is like, I'm done with this. I don't want to be a part of this crap. And so they try to destroy Doug. Mike was on the verge of doing that, so they fired up the wagons and armed themselves and tried to start defaming Mike until Ethan stepped in and put a stop to it. And how did Ethan put a stop to it? Not by telling these guys to stop. He just went on, had a stream, got Mike on the stream. They talked it out. We're friends like always, and everything moved on. And I watched that stream, and you could have watched that stream too. I can't find it. I don't think he kept it as a saved. I don't know. But instead of listening to the rumors of people on Twitter telling me, oh, Ethan's this dirtbag and all this stuff, I talked to Ethan behind the scenes. Then I went on and watched the stream. And there you go. Everything worked out. So Ethan will be the first one to tell you he's not a perfect person. And I think it's absolutely ridiculous to try to hold him as a perfect person. And to completely flip your lid when he does something that you dislike is really putting a little bit too much status on the guy. Just treat him like a comics pro. Buy his comics if you like them. If you don't like his comics, don't buy him. But to treat him as this sort of messiah leader of Comicsgate and he's responsible. Everything he does, you have Comicsgate on your hands. Everything that Comicsgate does, we're blaming you. I think that's just unfair. I think it's ridiculous. We've always said that Comicsgate isn't a group controlled by anyone. But yet we hold certain people to higher standards. That doesn't make any sense. Ethan's some schmo making comics. And he's no different than anyone else. He just happens to make really good comics. Geez, dogs. Something to think about. Thanks for watching. It's already been too long. I'll see you next time.